I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. To ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
It's now illegal for ICE and other law enforcement to cover their faces in the state of California. Starting today, my new anti-masking law goes into effect. I introduced and passed this law to stop ICE and any other law enforcement from covering their faces and effectively operating as secret police.
Several months later.
Today, in a win for the Trump administration, a federal court striking down a California law saying federal agents can't wear masks on duty. It comes after California became the first state to ban most law enforcement agents from covering their faces. The Trump administration has pushed to allow federal agents to wear masks during immigration operations to protect their identities and prevent threats.
California passed a law telling ICE agents they can't wear masks. A federal court just said, nope, that's unconstitutional. Democrats say they want ICE to operate openly, but they're the ones radicalizing people against agents. They created the problem, and they're trying to cover it up.
Boy. So we got to talk about some devastating news for Democrats in these blue states, these liberal states that are passing these anti-ICE laws, okay? Like, for example, they're trying to pass laws that ban ICE agents from protecting their identities from these far-left radical lunatics. Now, in the ideal world, ICE wouldn't have to do this, right? In an ideal world, ICE would not have to wear a mask or anything like that. They would be like regular law enforcement. However, because you have radicalized lunatics who are doxing ICE agents and their families, committing acts of violence, terrorism against them, this is necessary for the protection of these federal officers and their families, right? It's just an unfortunate reality. If they really wanted ICE to not wear masks, then they would tell their far-left lunatics to stop attacking ICE, right? Stop doxing them, and then, you know, there would be no reason to wear masks. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world, and Democrats are trying to pass these laws, and it just got struck down by a federal appeals court. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
On Wednesday, a federal appeals court blocked a California law that requires federal immigration officers to wear identification. There have been several states pushing back against the Trump administration's immigration enforcement. Washington is one of them. To dig into this decision more and how it could impact a new law in our state, we're joined by Gonzaga law professor Erica Goldberg. Thank you for being here, Erica.
Thanks for having me.
Why did this appeals court block this California law?
Sure. So I'm pretty sympathetic to why California, Washington want these laws to make sure that federal law enforcement and state law enforcement are identified. But the problem is, regardless of kind of the political push for something, we have fundamental rights and structures in the Constitution that say that the states can't tell the federal government how to conduct its law enforcement operations.
This is a tell. The court said it's basic civics. Supremacy clause. States can't control federal agents. This wasn't even close.
So this was basically, these preliminary injunctions were based on the Supremacy clause, which says that federal law is supreme over state law. So any state laws that tell the federal law enforcement how to do their jobs are going to be suspect.
Well, we've seen the federal government repeatedly say these state laws do not have authority over federal agencies. So is this legislation essentially toothless?
Yeah, basically, right now we have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the Court of Appeals that sets precedent for both the state of Washington and the state of California, issue preliminary injunctions. So these are not final rulings, but what they said is the United States is likely to win on the merits, meaning a federal Court of Appeals has already weighed in saying that these laws are invalid, unconstitutional, or they're likely to be considered invalid and unconstitutional.
Yeah, nobody should be surprised. Right? Is anybody surprised? I mean, this is basic stuff, right? Basic civics, right? You can't have the states tell the federal government what to do, right? Not in the realm of federal law enforcement, right? So they have no jurisdiction over ICE in requiring ICE to do anything, to ID themselves, to not wear masks, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. They cannot compel federal law enforcement to comply with their silly laws. Right? Again, there are laws which are designed to keep federal law enforcement from being able to enforce federal law, right? That's what people got to understand, right? The laws are designed to stop federal law enforcement from enforcing federal law, which in my opinion is obstruction, right? It's obstruction. And Democrats should be held accountable for obstruction. However, the unfortunate reality is that obstruction is what Democrats are campaigning on, right? Instead, they should be punished for it, but they're being rewarded for it because these far-left lunatics are radicalized against ICE. So, basically, again, this court has struck down California's attempt to make ICE agents identify themselves. The mask issue was already struck down, and this is just confirmation that they are not going to have a easy time appealing this or continuing to try to fight this in court, right? This is clearly unconstitutional.
They always avoid this. Democrats passed these laws knowing they'd be struck down. They wanted the soundbite, not the fix. That's virtue signaling. That's the thing. California overreacted. The court said it's unconstitutional. That's a major L for Newsom and a huge W for Trump. If this makes you proud, hit like and subscribe. California got crushed in court.
Well, last month, Governor Bob Ferguson signed a law banning most law enforcement officers, including federal officers, from wearing face coverings. Could that ruling impact our law?
Yeah, in fact, the Ninth Circuit, besides saying that probably California cannot enforce its ID requirements, a few months ago also said that the California law banning face coverings except in certain circumstances was also likely to be unconstitutional. Basically, anything where a state is telling the federal government directly how to conduct its law enforcement operations is going to violate the Supremacy Clause.
In your professional opinion, do you think the California case could end up at the Supreme Court?
I'm not sure. You know, this was a unanimous panel of the Ninth Circuit, meaning it wasn't political. It was almost like a pretty easy case. I think if we found a harder case, maybe a gray area where California was trying to kind of massage how federal officers comport themselves, but wasn't directly instructing them on what to do, maybe that could go to the Supreme Court. And maybe just because it's an issue of such national importance, it'll end up at the Supreme Court. But right now, I think that, you know, the unanimous panel with 2 Trump appointees and 1 Obama appointee makes it seem like at least the Constitution is pretty clear that the states can't do this.
Erica Goldberg, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's clear, right? It's very clear. What she's saying is that this is simple. This was easy. This is not political. This is not partisan. It's just the Constitution, right? It's basic civics, right? Hey, it's a supremacy clause. The state cannot pass any law directing the federal government on what to do when it comes to law enforcement. It's really that simple. And these Democrats overreached, and now these laws have been struck down. They have no teeth to them. They can't enforce them. And it's a major win for the administration, a major W for Trump, a major L for Gavin Newsom, for California, and for the rest of these blue states who are passing these laws, right? Which they were passing as virtue signals because they knew it was unconstitutional. They knew what they were doing was not going to be held up in court, but they didn't care. They wanted to get the soundbite, get the photo op, right? Pretend as if they're fighting against Trump, right? Get the far left lunatics radicalized and out in the streets, okay, against ICE. And, you know, they're not going to say too much about this not being held up, right? The fact that this was unconstitutional in the first place. But that's the name of the game. Regardless, huge W for the Trump administration, huge L for Democrats. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.